I cheated on him for months and left him for another man because I couldn't wait for his plans to unfold. Now that he's successful, I deeply regret my actions. It all started 6 years ago when I met Dave in college. I was 22, still figuring out my life, and so was he. I wasn't expecting to fall for him the way I did. But when I met him, it felt like everything around me stopped. I had never met anyone so full of ideas and dreams, and his creativity sparked something inside me. He was studying digital animation, and his passion was contagious. He didn't just dream of creating animation. He wanted to revolutionize it, to become something like the digital Walt Disney. I remember him explaining his projects in such vivid detail that I could almost see the worlds he was building in my mind. He wasn't just talking about drawings, he was talking about entire universes, characters, and stories that seemed to leap off the page. Within 2 years of us dating, he asked me to marry him. It wasn't the fairy tale proposal that people expect, but it felt real. There wasn't any hesitation when I said yes. We were young and eager, and we thought the world was our oyster. Everything was supposed to fall into place. But it didn't. After graduation, we made the big decision to leave our home state of Washington and move to California. Dave was chasing his dream, and I was right behind him, supporting him, or at least I thought I was. I took a job as a teacher, something steady, while he struggled to find his footing in the animation world. At first, I didn't mind. I knew this would take time. But as the years went on, something started to shift inside me. Los Angeles is expensive, and though I tried to stay optimistic, the financial strain began to chip away at me. Dave would work endless odd jobs and take on freelance gigs, but the big break he had promised never seemed to come. We were drowning in bills, living paycheck to paycheck, and I was growing tired of the wait. My frustration turned to resentment. I couldn't understand why things weren't progressing for him. Why weren't his hard work and dedication paying off? Why were we stuck in this never-ending cycle of struggle? Dave was my husband, my partner, and yet, his dreams were taking him further and further away from me. I could no longer see the man I had married in him. His obsession with his work, his singular focus on making it big in animation, began to feel suffocating. I started to resent him for it and for the life we were leading. In the midst of all this, I found myself slipping away emotionally, withdrawing from him more and more. The affection that once came so naturally to me was now gone. I started spending more and more time at the gym. It wasn't just about getting fit anymore, it became my escape. I could drown out the noise of my life, my dissatisfaction, my frustration with my marriage by focusing on myself. That's when I met Kevin. Kevin was everything Dave wasn't. He was a local guy from California, someone who had already found his niche in the world. He was outgoing, confident, and charming in a way that made me feel seen and appreciated in ways I hadn't felt in years. At first it was harmless. Just casual conversation while I worked out. But as the weeks went on, I found myself looking forward to those conversations. Kevin noticed the changes in my body as I pushed myself at the gym, and I noticed how he began to pay me more attention. It wasn't long before that attention became something more. I should have stopped it right there. I should have recognized it for what it was, a distraction, a fleeting attempt to fill the void. But instead I welcomed it. Kevin made me feel alive again in a way I hadn't felt in ages. Dave was so absorbed in his work, so focused on his dream that he didn't even notice. I could tell he appreciated the changes in me, the physical transformation, but it didn't matter. I wasn't emotionally available to him. I had checked out. The relationship with Kevin escalated quickly. We started meeting outside of the gym. He took me out on dates, and I lied to Dave about where I was going. I told him I was hanging out with friends from work when, in reality, I was spending my evenings at Kevin's apartment. Those evenings weren't spent just talking or watching movies. They were spent doing everything that I had denied Dave for so long. But I still wasn't ready to admit to myself what was happening. I told myself that I wasn't actually cheating, just finding comfort, finding a spark I'd lost in my marriage. But deep down, I knew what I was doing was wrong. It wasn't fair to Dave. It wasn't fair to me either. By the time I decided I wanted a divorce, I had already convinced myself that leaving him was the right thing to do. Dave had been trying so hard to make me happy, to fix things, but I had become numb to his efforts. I could no longer see the man I had married in him, and I was too blinded by my own selfish desires to even try to salvage things. When I told him I wanted out, it hit him like a ton of bricks. I remember his face, the hurt in his eyes. He begged me to reconsider, to give him a chance to make things right. But I had already made up my mind. I told him that I couldn't keep waiting for his dream to come true. We were financially struggling, emotionally disconnected, and I couldn't see a future with him anymore. The spark I once felt had long since died. I told myself that I was still young, that I deserved to be happy, and that Dave could bounce back from this. I convinced myself we weren't meant to be, that it was better for both of us to move on. The divorce was messy but not financially. There wasn't much to divide. We had nothing but our debts. I asked for nothing from him other than half of what I brought into the marriage. He agreed without hesitation, probably because he was too shocked to argue. By November 2019 I was fully involved with Kevin. At first it felt like everything I had wanted. Someone who appreciated me, someone who was more stable than Dave. But when the pandemic hit, everything changed. Living with Kevin wasn't what I had imagined it would be. We were confined to the same space for months, and it was there, in that suffocating closeness, that I started to realize just how much I had taken for granted in my marriage. Dave's little quirks, the way he used to make me laugh even when I didn't feel like it, the way he'd make me coffee in the morning without me asking, these were the things I missed. Kevin didn't do those things. He didn't know how to. And no matter how many times we went out or how many romantic gestures he made, it didn't fill the emptiness I had inside. I had left Dave for a man who, despite all his surface-level charm, couldn't offer me the depth of connection that I had once shared with him. And now, I was left with the weight of my decision, and the understanding that, in my quest for something better, I had traded something real for something fleeting. The grass, I realized, wasn't greener on the other side, it was just another patch of dry, barren earth waiting to swallow me whole.